If it was just racial slurs that brown people faced and that was it, wow. It's interesting when, kind of like when people don't know their history or not familiar with their history, because, I go back to this again where people were talking about let's make America great again. And people seem to think that meant, where we can, people in the country can oppress brown people, make them feel comfortable, walk up to them, call them racial slurs, degrade them, this kind of thing. Kind of like they did in the 40s, 50s, and way beyond that. But brown people are very strong. They're very strong when you think about it. Just to get to the point they are right now, where you come from a different continent, different country, travel across the ocean, you become a slave, you survive somehow, you get freed, but while you're free, you don't have access to anything. Somehow you have to make it, and they did. And then you get through the Jim Crow period, where they have all this separation, and the violence continues, by the way, from slavery all the way through Jim Crow violence, beatings, through manipulation, lynchings, burning, mutilations, rapes, and I've said it before, but it goes on, just the violence. But somehow they survived it, and they survived it because they're strong. To some, it may come across this weak because they endured it, but that's a strength. That's a real strength, so that the next generation can live, and the next generation can live, and so on. But I go back to this idea of make America great, and some people, some small-minded people, use this opportunity to try to manipulate and intimidate brown people by following them around, calling them racial slurs. And that's why I come back to this idea that sometimes you just have to know your history, because if it was just racial slurs that brown people faced and that was it, wow, they were the success and the overwhelming success and pride and what have you. You couldn't even touch it if that's all there was. Just that people just walked around calling them names, following them around. If that's all they faced, wow. But that's not all they faced. As I mentioned, they faced extreme violence, being burnt alive, rapes, mutilations. On and on the list goes. Not to mention things that happened in the workplace, within the police, within government. It just went on and on. So people, they use this idea of make America great, and they just follow people around, use racial slurs. That doesn't do anything. That's not enough to intimidate people. That's not enough to stop brown people. It's nothing. What happened to occur was the racial slurs that came with the violence. And we all know that the violence is not going to happen. That's all I got.